The Galactic Empire was vast beyond comprehension, its iron grip stretching across countless star systems, each world bowing beneath its unyielding rule. Its soldiers, the shining edge of this colossal regime, were trained to believe themselves invincible, superior in every way to the ragtag fighters clinging to their primitive planets. Earth, once a vibrant cradle of life and culture, was now dismissed as nothing more than a backwater outpost, a forgotten world hardly worth the Empire's effort. The soldiers laughed openly whenever Earth's name was mentioned, mocking the planet's inhabitants as mere insects, too weak and disorganized to pose any real threat. Among those Empire soldiers, confidence was their constant companion. They swaggered through battlefields with arrogance, their blasters and armor gleaming under the alien suns they conquered. No one questioned their might, no one dared defy the overwhelming power that backed each of their movements. Yet beneath the laughter and bravado lay a dangerous underestimation, a failure to see that the greatest threats often came in the smallest, quietest packages. On Earth, far from the cold steel of Imperial starships, a woman prepared herself for the fight ahead. She was not a soldier in the traditional sense, nor a high-ranking officer. She was a sniper, a shadow, a ghost whispered about in resistance camps and battle-hardened taverns. Her reputation was forged not from loud victories or grand speeches, but from the deadly precision of her aim and the calm steel in her eyes. Earth's people called her many things: a myth, a protector, a nightmare for the Empire's soldiers. Her story was one of survival and fierce determination, shaped by the ruins of a world struggling to breathe under oppressive skies. She stood at the edge of a ruined building, her rifle cradled with care, every part of her gear meticulously maintained. The faded Earth flag sewn into her jacket fluttered in the thin breeze, a quiet emblem of defiance. Around her, the city lay in silence, scars of battle etched deep into every cracked street and shattered window. Yet within this quiet, she was a storm waiting to break. Her name was Mara, but few knew it. To the Empire, she was simply the Earth Sniper, a joke at first. How could one lone woman from a primitive planet threaten their vast forces? They laughed at her supposed aim, convinced she was no more than a lucky shot at best. Yet Mara understood the truth of war, that it was not always strength that won battles, but skill, patience, and an unbreakable will. The Empire's forces were moving again, sending squads into Earth's contested zones with their usual confidence. Mara's network of informants had already warned her. They were preparing for a sweeping operation meant to crush the resistance once and for all. This would be her moment, the test of everything she had trained for. She would show them why Earth's soldiers were not to be mocked. As the first patrols moved into the ruins, their chatter was loud and brash, filled with the easy arrogance of those who believed victory was theirs by right. They joked about the Earth Sniper, calling her a lucky hunter in the shadows. "She's just one woman," one scoffed. "No different than shooting stray animals." Their confidence filled the stale air like poison, a lethal undercurrent beneath the metallic clang of their boots. Mara watched through her scope, every breath measured, every muscle still. She was patient, waiting for the perfect moment, knowing that a single bullet could change the course of this fight. Around her, the world held its breath, caught in the tension of impending violence. Time seemed to slow as she adjusted her aim, the crosshairs settling on the nearest soldier, a commander barking orders without caution. The trigger squeezed gently. The shot was a whisper in the chaos, but its impact was thunderous. The commander fell, clutching his chest, disbelief flashing in his eyes before darkness claimed him. The patrol froze, confusion rippling through their ranks. They searched for the invisible enemy, their arrogance beginning to crack. Mara's voice was calm as she radioed her team. "They're rattled. Keep them off balance." Her words carried weight, the voice of someone who had stared into death and refused to blink. Around her, resistance fighters moved silently, shadows blending into the broken cityscape, emboldened by the sniper's strike. Back on the Imperial side, the mood shifted rapidly. The soldiers' laughter faltered, replaced by tense whispers. Their commanders, once dismissive, now barked new orders. More caution, more defense. "Find her. Eliminate her." The words were sharp, desperate. The Empire was not used to being threatened by a single adversary, let alone one from a world they had long deemed irrelevant. Mara's mind raced through the possibilities, calculating enemy movements, predicting their strategies. She knew this was more than a battle. It was a message. Every shot she fired spoke volumes. Earth was not conquered. Earth still fought, and it still had warriors who could bleed the Empire dry if they were underestimated. Her finger hovered over the trigger again, eyes narrowing as she tracked a group of soldiers moving cautiously through the rubble. She spotted their flanks, noted their patterns, and waited. A single shot rang out, clean and final, and one more soldier dropped. Panic began to ripple through the ranks. The Empire's soldiers were losing their composure. But Mara was more than just a marksman. She was a symbol, a whisper of resistance carried on the wind. Her presence inspired the Earth fighters, giving them hope where there had been none. Her aim was true, but her resolve was sharper still. This was a fight for survival, for dignity, for the right to exist beyond the Empire's shadow. Yet, even as victory seemed within reach, Mara understood the dangers ahead. The Empire would not yield easily. They would bring their best, their most ruthless soldiers, and their most advanced technology. She would have to be smarter, faster, and deadlier than ever before. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the battlefield, Mara took a moment to breathe. Her eyes scanned the city, seeing not destruction, but a battlefield alive with resistance. She knew this fight was far from over. The Empire's laughter had turned to fear, but the real test was yet to come. The night would be long, and the stakes higher than ever. But Mara, Earth's silent sniper, was ready. The dusk deepened into night as Mara settled into her chosen vantage point, the ruined rooftop overlooking a narrow valley scarred by past skirmishes. Her breathing was steady, almost meditative, her senses stretched taut like the bowstring of a hunter's weapon. Below, the Galactic Empire's forces moved with their usual precision, their armored boots crunching softly over gravel and twisted metal. They were confident, too confident, and that confidence was their greatest weakness. She adjusted the scope of her sniper rifle, the cool metal familiar and reassuring against her cheek. Every component of the weapon had been carefully maintained, honed for moments just like this. Her fingers traced the worn engravings along the barrel, reminders of battles fought and lives lost. This rifle was an extension of herself, a tool forged in quiet determination and unyielding focus. The Empire soldiers advanced in squads, their ranks illuminated by the harsh glow of tactical lights and the occasional flicker of laser fire. To Mara, they were silhouettes against the dark canvas of night, unaware of the lethal precision waiting for them above. The patrol leader barked commands with sharp authority, his voice carrying an undercurrent of impatience. They laughed quietly among themselves, still dismissing the sniper they'd heard rumors about as a minor nuisance. But Mara had learned to ignore the laughter. She had survived by doing so. The battlefield was no place for distraction or doubt. The first target came into view, a heavily armored scout moving ahead of his unit, scanning the perimeter with electronic sensors that glowed faintly in the night. Mara's crosshairs locked onto a narrow gap in the scout's armor, a vulnerable spot she had memorized from intercepted schematics. Her breath slowed as she squeezed the trigger. The bullet found its mark with silent precision, striking true. The scout collapsed, his sensors flickering out as the patrol halted in confusion. Voices rose in alarm, harsh and clipped orders cascading through comm channels. Mara exhaled softly, her pulse steady. This was no mere lucky shot. It was a message. From the rooftop, Mara's gaze swept across the battlefield. The soldiers were scrambling now, their initial bravado giving way to caution. She could hear the rising tension in their voices, the crackle of radios desperate for information. The Empire commanders were quick to respond, sending reinforcements and ordering tighter formations. Mara's team moved through the shadows below, guerrilla fighters skilled in evasion and subterfuge. They relayed intel swiftly, taking advantage of the chaos her shots had sown. Each successful hit unnerved the Empire soldiers further, turning their confidence into a brittle shell. The patrol leader cursed, frustration seeping into his tone. "Who is this sniper? How do we find her?" His question echoed the disbelief spreading among the ranks. Mara's presence was becoming more than a nuisance, it was a threat to the entire operation. She watched a second squad reposition near a crumbling structure. The soldiers communicated with hand signals, a clear attempt to minimize electronic detection. Mara anticipated their move, adjusting her scope to track their patterns. Another bullet, another soldier down before he could even raise his weapon. The soldiers' morale fractured visibly. Whispers of fear rippled through their formations. Some began scanning the skies, others frantically checking their gear. They had not expected resistance of this caliber from Earth, a planet they had long dismissed. The Empire commanders were relentless, deploying surveillance drones and calling for specialized counter-sniper teams. They believed technology would root Mara out, but she was more than technology could anticipate. Years of training on Earth's unforgiving terrain had honed her instincts beyond the reach of sensors and algorithms. Mara moved with deliberate grace, slipping between shadows as she descended from her perch. Her communication device crackled softly, a voice filtering through. "Intel shows a flanking maneuver to your east. Be careful." She acknowledged with a brief nod, even though none could see her. The resistance fighters were coordinated, but this was her fight alone. Her mind mapped out the battlefield with ruthless clarity. Every building, every ridge, every shadow was a potential vantage point or a deadly trap. As she slipped through the ruins, Mara's movements were fluid, almost ghost-like. Her rifle was always ready, her senses alert to the faintest sounds, the crunch of footsteps, the soft hiss of a sliding door, the distant hum of a hover vehicle. She was a hunter and the hunted all at once. The Empire's countermeasures intensified. Heavy blaster fire lit up the night, pinning down suspected sniper positions. Mara ducked behind a shattered wall as plasma bolts scorched the air where she had just been moments before. The soldiers were closing in, their tactics evolving to trap her. But Mara was not so easily cornered. She laid traps of her own, distractions crafted from debris, flashbangs rigged to detonate at precise moments, all designed to mislead and disorient. Her strikes became more calculated, each shot a surgical blow designed not just to kill but to dismantle the Empire's confidence. The tide began to turn. Where once the soldiers laughed at the idea of an Earth sniper, now they moved with hurried caution. Their leaders barked orders through clenched teeth, frustration mounting as losses grew. In a narrow alley, Mara spotted a squad moving to flank her position. Their steps were deliberate, the weight of their armor audible even in the dead silence of the night. She took a deep breath, steadying her aim at the squad's leader, a towering figure with an ornate helmet that marked him as elite. The shot rang out like a thunderclap, piercing the night's stillness. The leader dropped, his squad scattering in panic. Mara vanished before they could regroup, slipping into the maze of ruins like a shadow. She knew they would hunt her relentlessly now, deploying their best soldiers to bring her down. But Mara welcomed the challenge. The battlefield was hers as much as it was theirs. Every inch reclaimed by her bullets was a victory for Earth. Back at their command post, the Empire officers seethed with frustration. Intelligence reports painted a grim picture. Their soldiers were demoralized, their tactics ineffective against an adversary they had barely acknowledged until now. The concept of an Earth fighter, let alone a woman sniper, was a hard pill to swallow. One officer slammed a fist against the table, voice sharp with anger. "We underestimated her. We must adapt, or this entire operation will fail." Orders came swiftly to deploy elite counter-sniper units, equipped with cutting-edge detection gear and experimental weaponry. They would find her. They would eliminate the threat. Mara anticipated their moves. She was no stranger to being hunted, and her survival depended on staying one step ahead. She used the terrain to her advantage, leading pursuers into traps, forcing them into kill zones she had prepared. Her resolve hardened with every close call, every narrow escape. This was not just a battle for survival, it was a war for respect, for recognition that Earth's defenders were not to be dismissed. Hours stretched on, the night bleeding into dawn. The Empire's forces had been battered, shaken, and forced to reconsider their arrogance. Mara's shots continued to echo across the battlefield, each one a statement of defiance. As first light crept over the horizon, Mara found herself perched on a ridge overlooking the battered forces below. Exhausted but unbowed, she surveyed the field of battle, a testament to resistance and resilience. The Empire's soldiers no longer laughed. Their eyes held fear, respect, and the heavy weight of underestimation corrected too late. For Mara, this was only the beginning. The sniper from Earth had made her mark, and the Galactic Empire would never forget. The fight was far from over, but tonight, the shadows belonged to her. Night had deepened into a thick, suffocating darkness, broken only by the cold glint of distant starships patrolling the upper atmosphere. Mara crouched silently behind a shattered concrete pillar, her breath slow and measured, eyes sharp beneath the shadow of her helmet. Around her, the ruined city lay still, a maze of broken walls, twisted metal, and crumbled hope. The air was thick with the scent of scorched earth and distant smoke, evidence of battles fought and lives extinguished. Yet in this wasteland, Mara was more alive than ever, every nerve alert, every sense honed to perfection. The Galactic Empire's counterattack was now in full force. What had started as a confident, mocking campaign had turned into a desperate hunt. The Empire commanders refused to lose their prized operation to a lone sniper from Earth. Elite units had been dispatched, specialized soldiers trained for precision tracking, equipped with advanced scanning gear and weaponry designed to flush out even the most elusive targets. They moved systematically, a pack of wolves scouring the ruins for their prey. But Mara was no ordinary target. She was a ghost, a shadow, a whisper on the wind. Every move she made was deliberate, calculated to sow confusion and exploit the enemy's overconfidence. She had spent years perfecting her craft, mastering terrain, and bending technology to her will. Tonight, her prowess would be unleashed in full. From her vantage point, she watched as an elite squad advanced cautiously through the narrow streets below, their armor reflecting faint glimmers of artificial light. They moved with the confidence of professionals, aware that they faced a dangerous adversary, yet undeterred. Their leader, a hardened officer with cold, calculating eyes, scanned the environment through a heads-up display integrated into his helmet. He was determined to end this hunt. Mara's lips pressed into a thin line. She studied their formation, noting their approach routes and communication patterns. With a fluid motion, she assembled a makeshift decoy from scattered debris, rigging it with a small explosive timed to go off in moments. It was a trap designed not to kill, but to disorient and mislead. The explosion shattered the eerie silence, sending a cascade of dust and sparks into the air. The elite squad froze, their attention drawn to the sudden chaos. That was when Mara struck. From her concealed position, the sniper rifle whispered twice in rapid succession. Two soldiers dropped before they could react. One struck through the neck, the other through the temple. The squad immediately took cover, returning fire with suppressed blasters, their sharp shots echoing off the ruined walls. But Mara was already moving, slipping through shadows like liquid night. Her agility belied the weight of her equipment, every step silent and sure. She was both hunter and hunted, weaving a deadly dance that left her pursuers guessing. The chase led her into a labyrinth of collapsed buildings and narrow alleys. Mara's mind raced, mapping out every exit, every potential ambush point. She led the elite squad into a narrow corridor where her trap was waiting, a cluster of sharp fragments rigged with proximity explosives. As the soldiers advanced, the trap detonated with a controlled fury. Shards of metal and concrete erupted, tearing through armor and scattering the squad. Those who survived the blast were disoriented, vulnerable. Mara took her chance, dispatching two more with precise shots before vanishing once again. Despite the damage inflicted, the elite squad regrouped quickly. Their leader's voice crackled over comms, terse and furious. Target is highly skilled. Maintain formation. No unnecessary risks. Mara's heart pounded with the thrill of the hunt. She was not just fighting for survival, she was dismantling the Empire's pride, unraveling their assumption of superiority one bullet at a time. The battle shifted beyond brute force. Mara employed psychological warfare, decoys, traps, unpredictable tactics that drained the enemy's morale as much as their numbers. The Empire's elite soldiers began to doubt their invincibility. Fear crept into their eyes, a rare and dangerous emotion for those trained to be fearless. In the midst of this turmoil, Mara's team struck coordinated blows elsewhere in the city. Resistance fighters exploited the chaos she created, seizing control of key strategic points, sabotaging supply lines, and disrupting communications. Every success fed Mara's resolve, every shout of victory igniting a fire within her. Yet the Empire was not beaten. The commander of the elite squad, refusing to accept defeat, called in reinforcements, a specialized mech unit, towering and armed with heavy weaponry designed to suppress insurgents. The clanking footsteps of the mech echoed ominously, a steel giant stalking the ruins. Mara's breath hitched. The mech was a game-changer. Its advanced sensors could scan for heat signatures and movement patterns beyond the reach of her usual concealment tactics. To confront it head-on would be suicide. She retreated swiftly, slipping through a series of tunnels known only to her team. Inside the claustrophobic darkness, Mara's mind raced for a plan. She needed to turn this technological beast's strength against itself. Her opportunity came when the mech paused at a choke point, a narrow passage too tight for its bulky frame, forced to wait for clearance. Mara activated a remote explosive planted days earlier beneath the structure above. The ceiling trembled, and massive debris crashed down, blocking the mech's path and forcing it to reposition. Using the distraction, Mara maneuvered closer. She found a vantage point atop a crumbling ledge, sighted the mech's weak points, its exposed joints and sensor arrays, and prepared her most powerful shot yet. The rifle's custom rounds were designed to penetrate advanced armor with devastating effect. A single, thunderous shot cracked through the silence. The bullet struck the mech's sensor dome, shattering it and blinding the machine. Sparks erupted as the mech staggered, its heavy footsteps faltering. The elite soldiers panicked, retreating behind the crippled mech for cover. Mara pressed the advantage, firing again to disable the mech's mobility systems. The mechanical giant groaned and collapsed with a resounding crash, dust and debris billowing around it. The fall of the mech was a turning point. Empire forces hesitated, their formidable advantage diminished. Mara seized the moment, coordinating a swift, ruthless assault with her team. They surged from cover, overwhelming disoriented soldiers with precise strikes and guerrilla tactics. Amid the chaos, Mara locked eyes with the elite squad leader as he tried to rally his men. There was no fear in his gaze, only grudging respect and the cold determination of a warrior facing an unexpected equal. She fired once more, the bullet finding its mark in his armored chest. He crumpled silently, the fight draining from his body like the last breath of a dying star. With their leader fallen and the mech destroyed, the remaining Empire soldiers scattered, their morale shattered beyond repair. Mara's team pressed forward, reclaiming ground inch by inch. In the aftermath, the battlefield was a mosaic of fire and silence. Smoke curled from smoldering wreckage, and the distant hum of retreating ships filled the air. Mara stood amidst the ruins, her rifle still warm in her hands, eyes scanning for any sign of renewed threat. Her breathing slowed as the adrenaline ebbed away. The cost had been high, but so had the victory. Her team gathered around her, faces tired but triumphant. Their eyes held the same fierce light, a shared understanding that this night had changed everything. The legend of the Earth Sniper was no longer a whisper or a joke, it was a reality that had pierced the heart of the Galactic Empire's arrogance. Mara allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. The enemy was battered but not broken. The Empire would adapt, bring more forces, more technology, more ruthless commanders. The war was far from over. But for now, the night belonged to her and the fighters of Earth. Their defiance had been etched into the stars, a beacon of hope and resistance. As dawn crept over the horizon, casting pale light on the scarred city, Mara lowered her rifle and looked to the future. This battle was a victory, but the greater war awaited. The Galactic Empire had underestimated Earth once, and paid dearly for it. Next time, they would come prepared. And so would she. The sniper's story was just beginning. The first rays of dawn spilled across the battered cityscape, casting long shadows over streets scarred by fire and gunfire. The silence that followed the night's chaos was heavy but not peaceful. It was a silence filled with weight, the heavy truth of sacrifice, victory, and the fragile hope that clung stubbornly to the remnants of Earth's battered resistance. Mara moved through the ruins with deliberate steps, her rifle slung low but never out of reach. Her body ached from the relentless hours of combat, muscles stiff and bruised, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. The air was thick with the metallic tang of spent ammunition and smoldering debris, reminders of the brutal clash that had shaken the Galactic Empire's confidence and changed the course of the battle. Around her, resistance fighters regrouped, their faces etched with exhaustion yet alight with renewed determination. They gathered close, eyes wide as they recounted the night's harrowing encounters, the deadly precision of the sniper whose bullets had turned the tide. For many, Mara was more than a warrior. She was a symbol, a living testament to Earth's resilience and unyielding will. The Empire's forces had been forced to withdraw, their arrogant advance stalled and fractured. Reports filtered in, Squads decimated, elite units crippled, morale shattered. The Galactic Empire had tasted defeat at the hands of a single woman, a sniper from a planet they had dismissed as insignificant. The humiliation echoed through their command centers like a bitter storm. Yet Mara knew this was only the beginning. The Empire would regroup, adapt, and return with greater force. Her victory, though vital, was a spark in a gathering storm. The war for Earth's freedom was far from over. As the sun climbed higher, casting golden light over the battered city, Mara sought out the Resistance's command post, a makeshift hub nestled within the remains of a former government building. Inside, commanders and strategists pored over maps and data feeds, their expressions grim but hopeful. Mara's arrival was met with quiet respect and urgent questions. "We've delayed them," she reported, voice steady despite the fatigue. "But they're regrouping. More troops will come. We need to prepare." A commander nodded, his gaze heavy with responsibility. "Your actions saved lives, and gave us hope. But we must not rely on one sniper. We need unity, strategy, and strength." Mara agreed silently. Her role as the sniper was crucial, but the Resistance's survival depended on more than her solitary skill. It required sacrifice, coordination, and an unbreakable spirit among all who refused to bow. Later, Mara found a quiet corner and allowed herself a moment of solitude. The adrenaline of battle faded, replaced by the weight of memories. The faces of fallen comrades, the sound of distant explosions, the cold certainty that the price of freedom was steep. Her thoughts drifted to those who had trained her, the mentors who had instilled discipline and patience, and the countless hours spent perfecting her aim in forgotten corners of Earth. Despite the hardship, there was pride too. Pride in survival, in resilience, and in proving the Empire wrong. The soldiers who had once laughed at her had been silenced, not by numbers, but by skill and heart. A soft comm signal interrupted her reverie. It was her team, reporting in from various parts of the city, confirming their positions and safety. The network they had built over years of resistance was holding, a fragile but vital web connecting scattered fighters in a unified cause. Mara's gaze lifted toward the sky, where distant stars shimmered faintly through the haze. Somewhere out there, the Empire's fleet loomed, a reminder that this battle was a single chapter in a larger war. But Earth had made its mark, a warning that the galaxy's mightiest could be challenged by those who refused to surrender. In the days that followed, the Resistance consolidated their gains. Supply lines were secured, defenses strengthened, and morale bolstered by the knowledge that even against overwhelming odds, victory was possible. Mara continued her vigilance, ever watchful, ever ready. Word of her deeds spread beyond Earth, carried by whispered transmissions among rebel cells and sympathizers across the stars. She became a beacon of hope, a living legend inspiring others to stand against tyranny. Yet Mara remained focused, wary of the fame that could become a burden, a target. In quiet moments, she reflected on the path ahead. The road was long, fraught with danger and uncertainty. The Galactic Empire was relentless, and their resources vast. But Earth's defenders had something they could never match, unbreakable will and fierce love for their home. Mara's rifle was more than a weapon, it was a promise. A promise that no matter how dark the night, the light of resistance would endure. That even in the face of overwhelming power, one person's courage could change the course of history. As the sun set on the city, painting the sky with hues of red and gold, Mara stood watch over the horizon. The battle had been won, but the war continued. The Galactic Empire had learned to fear Earth's sniper, and now the galaxy would learn to respect her. Her story was far from over. It had only just begun.